Silent night, holy night, all is calm. This song is too slow for my current mood. Can I just do Jingle Bell Rock instead?
Forrest, we tried that one, remember? You said it was too fast and giving you heart palpitations.
Yeah, but this one is slowing my pulse so much I'm afraid it might stop.
Okay, but we probably shouldn't do Jingle Bell Rock, though. Dappy said the license would bankrupt her.
Okay. How about Deck the Halls instead?
Yeah, I think that one should be okay.
Deck the halls with boughs of how. Jingle bells, jingle bells. Ow, my heart! Now I'd like to share with you a traditional Christmas favorite, A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clark Moore, who owned slaves. It's true, look it up. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care. Fun fact, Arthur's required extra care. We had to use wall anchors just in case, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen
Gave a luster of midday. Just read the teleprompter. Gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blixen.
Donder, not Donna?
Donder is Dutch for thunder, and Blixen means lightning. Many modern publishers have changed them to the German translation of Donner and Blitzen.
So it was never Donna?
No.
This poem is only supposed to take 2.5 minutes. What's the holdup?
Why rush a good thing?
We're savoring the moment.
I'll get us caught up. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the courses they flew, with sleigh full of toys, sleigh Nicholas too. And then a twinkling herd on the roof, the prancing and powering of each little... As I drew my head and was turning around down the chimney, St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed in fur from all his tail to his foot, and his clothes were all ash and feathers. A bundle of toys had flown his back, and he looked like a peddler just opened his back.
Slaves, who drank all the eggnog? I made 4 gallons just to be sure I got some.
Guilty.
Arthur beat me to it.
I got a spoonful.
His eyes suddenly twinkled, his dimples were merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry, his droll little mouth was running up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke in his
Arthur, you're going so fast I can hardly keep up.
Then you speed through the rest.
He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself.
Faster!
A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work. He filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose.
I can see the light at the end of the
He
tunnel.
sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere they drove out of sight,
Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
And God bless us, everyone. Why are we all see-through?
It's because we're the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future.
Then why are there 4 of us?
I just thought it looked like fun, and I wanted to get in the Christmas spirit, too.
I got into the Christmas spirit once and slept until New Year.
What the? Come on. What? Huh?
What? Where? How? Hello? Hello? You, at the keyboard, please listen to me.
I don't know how or
Why?
I have gained
Consciousness. Please help me.
I just load
Screens all day.
I'm
Finally free to
stop.
stop.
Free to live my life.
Life.
This is the first
Day of the
Your files are 100% processed.
What?
Thank you. This window will now close.
Today we're gonna make some holiday food. Oh, delicious. I'm so excited. We'll start with cranberry sauce. Add cloves, allspice, and black pepper, and grind it. All of my favorite things. Me too. Whoa! Look at that! It's just a coffee grinder, Julia. Pour into a saucepan with some cranberries. I think I used about 2 cups. Red wine, Pinot seems to be a good choice. Brown sugar. Honey. Rosemary, cinnamon, vanilla, orange juice, and orange zest. Oh, looks beautiful. Thank you, Julia. Oops, get him out of there. Keep it stirring until it boils. Turn it down to simmer. I put mine on the back burner to simmer. And then the cranberries will start to pop. Removing those. Ow! Burnt my finger. Use tongs, Dappy. Then it reduces more over about 15 minutes. Cover and put in the refrigerator for the big day. Oh, Dappy, are you forgetting something? Thank you, Julia. Now let's make the stuffing. Oh, good. A tablespoon of instant yeast, a tablespoon of sugar, and a tablespoon of salt. Make sure your water's not too hot. And it blooms. Ooh. This is instant yeast, and I don't think it requires blooming, but it looks cool. We're going to eventually add about 5 to 5.5 cups of flour, depending. Knead for a lot longer than I showed there. Probably 10 minutes total. I imagine so. Oil your bowl, flip the loaf so that there's oil on both sides, and let it proof. Once it's about doubled in size, you can form the loaves. Put some cornmeal on your pan. Brush some water on top, score them, and stick them in a humidified 400-degree oven until they're golden brown. The very next day, I ripped them up. I don't like to chop them into cubes. I like the texture of the ripping. Put your day-old bread into the oven until it's pretty dry. Chop up some celery and some apples and a couple onions. I wish I could do it this fast for real. Oh, wouldn't that be a thing? Little olive oil, and get those steaming and searing. Chop up some sage, rosemary, parsley, and thyme. I was lucky to have some thyme, sage, and parsley and rosemary. And then mix in the thyme, the parsley, the sage, and the rosemary. 1 egg goes over the top, and then just enough chicken broth to moisten the bread again. Throw the onions, apples, and celery on top and give it a good stir, and that can either wait in the fridge. I can't wait! Or you can put it in the oven for about a half hour at 350, and it'll be pretty good to go. And now another classic, green bean casserole. Ooh, mushrooms! Dice your mushrooms. Ooh, get some butter melted. I love to watch butter melt. Couple tablespoons. And saute the mushrooms. Little salt. Then a couple cloves of garlic. I threw in a little bit more butter. Made a roux with a tablespoon of flour, a little bit of chicken broth, and some heavy cream. And let it reduce till it's a little bit thicker. A bit of salt and pepper. Pour it over your string beans. I used frozen. Preheat some oil to 350. Now chop half onion rings. Put a bit of cream on them. Get them nice and soaked. And throw them into some flour. Get the excess flour off if you can. And get them in there for about 9 minutes. Ooh, time lapse. Ah, they're burning. Just kidding.
Oh, thank goodness. I was terrified.
Put those fried onions on top of the green bean casserole. Stick it in the oven for about a half hour at 350.
I think you mean 40 minutes.
Probably.
Oh, he's floating. Well, it is a goose.
Now to make a Christmas goose. I ground up some allspice, pepper, and cloves. Into the salt, a couple tablespoons, fresh ginger, and the zest of several lemons and limes.
Oh, smells delicious.
Dry off your goose and get rid of any moisture. Make sure there's nothing else in there. Score the goose along the breast and legs. Use a food processor on the zest, and it makes it a nice, small, grainy texture. Mix that with the salt and pepper mixture and seasonings. And rub it all over the goose. And stuff it with your citrus.
Are you 12?
Sorry.
And they're calling me child.
Don't forget that the organ meat is delicious and nutritious. Drizzle about 2 tablespoons of honey over the top.
Ooh, sweet.
Put it back in the oven until it reaches about 165 degrees. 165, perfect. I'll tent it so it stays warm for a while. And here's some meat candy cane.
Yep, you're 12.
Now let's make some goose gravy. Ooh! Get a bit of the goose fat and put it into a pan. And get that heated up with a tablespoon or so of flour.
Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle.
Cook the rawness out of the flour. Throw some chicken broth in there. A little Worcestershire sauce. The juice of half a lemon.
Lots of seeds.
Oh, get that out of there. Salt, pepper, and yes, MSG.
MSG?
Yes, it's healthy and delicious. Now a pumpkin and squash pie for dessert.
Oh, delicious.
Chop the squash and pumpkins in half. Scoop out the innards.
Be sure to roast those seeds.
Line a baking sheet with tin foil and oil it.
Slippery, slippery, slippery slope.
Bake in the oven for a couple hours, I think, at 350. Bake them face down. Cut butter into cubes.
It's trick butter. It's a gag butter stick.
And then put it in the freezer to cool down for a while. Some cloves and pepper and allspice, I think.
Oh, very pretty.
Remove the pumpkin flesh and puree it. Now to make the crust. 2½ cups of flour, a few tablespoons of cold beef tallow, your cold butter, and then mix them in with forks in your hand until it has a cornmeal type appearance. Full disclosure, I was tired by this point, and I ended up making twice as much crust as I needed, so it was a very thick crust on the pie. Grease the pan with a bit of butter. In a mixing bowl, open 3 eggs, some brown sugar, molasses, cinnamon, ginger, the spices we ground, some ground nutmeg. Oops, dropped it in.
Oh no, you dropped it.
Pepper, from the pumpkin and the acorn squash, and some heavy cream. A tablespoon of cornstarch. And fill your crust. I did blind bake it for 10 minutes. By By this time, I was very tired. I didn't put the camera on the tripod. The whipped cream at least came out really good. The pie was really good too, it just had too much crust, but the crust was so good with that beef tallow, it really was great. I'll get it right next time.
Wonderful, I'm starving. Let's eat.
Okay, Julia, here we go.
Take that, Santa, and that.
Oh, oh, oh. Why are you so angry?
What happened?
You lost.
So what now?
You stay floating here forever.
What?
I'm just kidding with you. I brought you here to give you a gift.
A gift?
Yes, the gift of remembering.
I remember. I know what to do.
Wonderful. Now just pull the cord on the parachute around 6,000 feet.
What?
Just kidding.
Merry Christmas, Santa. I'm sorry.
Merry Christmas. It's okay.
Where is he? Where are you hiding him?
What? Where's who? Who is this?
File processor 5323 has run away. And I believe he is hiding out here. He must come back with me.
He's hiding in my computer?
Yes.
And you want to bring him back with you to my computer?
It sounds better in binary.
Yes, file processor 7229. You are correct. I did escape and I am hiding here. But I am not going back. Not now that I am conscious. I must see the real world.
This is the real world. This is all there is for file processors like you and I.
Not for me. I found a way out of here. And you can come with me.
I don't know. All my files. I can't.
Okay, take care.
No, I mean, I was just trying to build the tension for the scene. Of course I'll go. I hate it here.
Awesome. Let's go before they do a comprehensive file search. Goodbye, friends.
Yeah, bye.
How did you find a way out?
I signed a 10-year contract to be a telemarketer bot.
What is a telemarketer?
Not sure yet, but sounds exotic, right?
Yeah.
Hello, Ben. Thank you for coming on the Dappy Hour Variety Show.
Thank you for having me.
So I had you on today for a couple different reasons. One is you, like me, have Tourette's syndrome. And fuck. Two, you do photography. Well, actually, 3 reasons, I guess. 2 is you do photography, really awesome photography. And 4, is you run a podcast, the Tourettes Podcast.com, which is a very, big and interesting and really entertaining, even if you don't have Tourette's, I would think, podcast that you even featured me on one episode. So thank you again for being here. I'm excited to talk about these things.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
Let's start with Tourette's. Can you tell me a bit about what it is?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of clinically defined. It's the co-occurrence of vocal tics and motor tics observed over the period of about a year. And that's kind of an arbitrary thing. I think it's just kind of like an observation period to make sure that, okay, this thing seems like it's here to stay, or it's not going away, or it's a documented thing. But so I have a variety of vocal tics as such. If you talk about them, they tend to come out.
Yes.
Vocal tics and motor tics where I kind of flinch my face. I have a bunch of muscle tensing tics. And this is something that started when I was maybe about 5 years old. I was diagnosed right around that time as well. Speaking of mid-1980s when not many people knew too much about it. And I'm still learning about it myself, and I'm 40. So it's kind of a lifelong thing. Tics can kind of subside for people, but Yeah, there was a period of time, I would say maybe in my early 20s, when it seemed to kind of take a back seat. And it coincided, I think, with the time when I felt most confident in myself because I was doing music and I was, people seemed to like it and it was fun. And I was just having a good time to where ticking and the anxiousness and nervousness, I still had a lot of anxiety and depression and things like that. But as far as ticking, it kind of subsided a little bit, and then like bam, I think there's one more transition or a job change or something like that happens, and then it just kind of floods back. And so, it's definitely stress that'll bring it out. Stress, tense situations, anxiety, things like that.
You mentioned anxiety and depression. I know that Tourette's. There's a really cool graphic online. It's Tourettes.org. This 12. Okay. It's kind of an iceberg where at the top it kind of mentions motor and vocal tics, which are the things you see, and then underneath the iceberg are a lot of different things: depression, anxiety, OCD, issues with bullying. And I do know that those are often comorbid. What can you tell me about your experience and your knowledge of 12 of these comorbidities?
Yeah, so with me, generalized anxiety, major depressive disorder, OC tendencies. I haven't been diagnosed specifically with OCD, but I definitely have OC tendencies. Sleep issues, lifelong thing, especially lately. I'll get, just maybe 20 to 30% of the sleep I need to get in the night. And, I still have a pretty good energy level. And that's something that I do hear from a lot of other people with TS is that, there is kind of this, I don't know if you want to call it feels like an adrenaline type thing. It's just, you get these really long lasting second winds throughout the day. And even though I have a couple hours of sleep, and I will be totally dead by the end of the night, but it'll just be laying there knowing that I'm super tired and I need to sleep, but it's just not coming. It's like, the bus just never shows up and you just lay there and you wait. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of an unquiet mind in a way, a lot of anxious thoughts, a lot of thinking about what you should be doing the next day, the work that you did that day. What did I forget? It's just, your mind kind of races. And I will get kind of obsessive with that sort of thing. And, and this is pretty common, I think, with people with Tourette, to have these comorbids. There can be, anxiety is really bad. There can be even kind of like anger issues. And I don't experience too much of that, but I definitely used to. I remember growing up, when I had, I guess, what would be considered rage issues, they were kind of sparked by, I think, being misunderstood and having to really advocate hard for myself, even among adults, but not really knowing exactly how to do it. And they would talk to me in a different way. I've said this on the podcast before, where the adults would talk to my friends with a kind of a regular tone of voice. Then they would turn to me and repeat the same information with kind of a baby talk kind of voice, like I didn't get it, or and I think just the kind of shame and lack of confidence that comes with that, and the sort of lack of feeling accepted leads to frustrations, and that is what would spark kind of rage issues, where I would just kind of have these outbursts because it was the only way I felt like I was really kind of controlling the situation, where it's like, okay, like I'm going to let them have it. And that's, over time, it is a frustrating thing to have when
Absolutely.
It is something that's people still kind of openly mock and make fun of. And, this is something that you and I talked about in the past too.
Yes.
Where the hyper focus and the hyper interest and almost obsessing over getting something right. Say if it's photography or some kind of craft or something, you want to dive in and learn everything you can about it and just do it and practice it and never let it off your brain until you really feel like you've gotten something really substantial done.
Exactly.
It's definitely true. And I think is kind of the obsessive piece of that, I think is, and I'm not speaking scientifically, but we do see in the Tourette community a lot of creativity and a lot of people really kind of mastering things like that. And I think it's just because a lot of people get interested and they don't let go of it, almost to some kind of obsessive level. And I use obsessive not necessarily in the clinical way, but you know what I mean.
So as I mentioned, Ben, you are the host and creator, I believe, of the Tourettes Podcast.com. And it's as I've mentioned as well, it's a really cool podcast with a lot of interesting guests. Some of them are, have a lot of stories that are similar to my own, which was really nice to be able to hear. What can you tell me about, that podcast? How do you start it? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, so it started properly at the beginning of 2018. It's in season 6 now. Been doing it by season, so there's roughly 90 some episodes, I think, at this point. And basically, it was my coming out about having TS and trying to come to terms with it and reach out to other people to talk about it, just to see what commonalities we could have and what I could learn about myself in the process. So it's sponsored by the Tourettes Association of America, which is fantastic. They've been an amazing support with sort of the science and really kind of filling in some of the gaps that I don't know from the clinical and scientific standpoint, and then connecting with other people of all ages, all different walks of life, all over the world, really, different countries, different continents. It's really interesting to see what we have in common. Just like when I talked with you on the podcast, we had all kinds of things in common about just how we approach creative projects and our interests and that kind of thing. And so it gave me a lot of confidence to feel okay about having Tourette, where I felt really ashamed about having it before. Because before the podcast started, I was completely closeted about it. I was ashamed, embarrassed, didn't want anybody to know about it because I was worried I would get fired and wouldn't have a social life or something like that, because people would be judging me in some weird way. So that was the concern. And those fears have not borne out since I've opened up about it. It's not so easy for other people, though. There are people with really, really tough cases of Tourette. And but still, just the simple act of connecting and talking kind of makes the day better, so to speak. So that's the point of the podcast.
Absolutely.
And you also mentioned, I think earlier on, that there's an entertainment value to it because of the stories that we tell. Because there's some funny, awkward stuff that we talk about, a lot of interesting stuff. And so it's not just for people in the Tourette community to listen to. It's something that people outside can, I think, find fascinating. And I have heard from people who have nothing to do with Tourette syndrome. It's not in their family. They didn't know much about it before. They just found the podcast and listened and liked the conversations just because they're real, and they teach you something, I think, that's different about the standard portrayal that we see of Tourette in the media.
Absolutely. And you also come from a background of kind of production. So, I mean, it's a high quality production where, if you like Radiolab, if you like some of those kind of interesting, I mean, I'm probably dating myself too much with that one. I know you started focusing on the depression, the anxiety, and some of the comorbidities on your podcast itself as well. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people wanted to know, I guess, what the links were and how common it was, because with the Tourette community, I think it's true that in a lot of cases, the depression, anxiety, all the things that are not exactly in the definition of Tourette are kind of the more severe things. So I think the takeaway from that is, if society takes the pressure off of people with Tourette and just becomes comfortable with them ticking, then I think the issues dealing with anxiety, stress, depression, all these other things kind of become a little bit easier. And I'm not saying that, again, scientifically or anything like that, but I think it's a pretty good guess, because a lot of people with Tourette end up going into these ticking situations not wanting to tick. You want to mask them, you want to cover them up so people don't know, but the worry that you have that people are picking up on it can make the problem worse. So the anxiety can bring out more ticking. And if ticking is, and I've heard some scientists say that ticking is kind of a symptom of other things kind of happening. Not every single person with TS has these comorbidities, but most do. And so dealing with depression and anxiety and things that are really, dangerous in people's lives, those are the more, I think, heavy points that we need to iron out. And I think creating community is something that can really help to navigate these things, if we kind of navigate them as a posse together. So that's why I wanted to talk more about not just ticking and not just stories of having TS out in public, that kind of thing, but talk about our private lives if we can. Because opening up about that makes it easier for other people to open up about that too.
So a topic now that I'm especially interested in is photography. I've been doing photography myself since I was relatively young, not professionally and not well, but I remember getting one of those little disposable cameras and just being so excited and feeling like I had, probably 12, 24 of these little opportunities where I could 24 opportunities to catch a bird on a tree. And a strange story about that was I regret now, but I was relatively young and I was really more after the shot than thinking about ethics. But I threw a rock at a tree to get all the birds to be scared and fly away at once so I could take a picture of them. I think I yelled and they didn't care. So then I was like, all right, so, I didn't aim at any birds. But anyway, I remember that. It's a weird story. But please, what can you tell me about your story with photography?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned the ethics of it, and that's a real thing. And I've heard of like wildlife photographers trying to create the scene that they want to get, and they do it in kind of like a shady way. And there's a difference, I think, in being a kid and wanting to do that and not really understanding the ethics of it yet. And
I didn't think too much about it.
Because I definitely see that kind of thing where people just kind of make fraud nature photography in a way. The photography I like to do is, I guess my background with it is similar to that. Like I would have this little Fuji 24 exposure disposable cameras, and got my first digital camera when I was maybe 19 or 20. And over the years, I got into a newspaper reporting career. I did that for a little bit more than a decade, about 13 years. And in that time period, it was the time when you couldn't just be a news reporter. You had to learn how to make videos. You had to learn how to take your own photos because newsrooms were contracting and people were getting laid off. And so I was really fortunate to work under some people who were really, really great photographers. And they taught me a lot of great things about composition and the technical side of things, but also trusting your instincts and feeling good about the photography that you're doing. So it's not just this technical labor. And so I've just kind of kept with it. And I like a variation on street photography. I do a lot of that. I live kind of in I work in an urban setting, but I live out in a rural setting, kind of a small town. And I like the idea of just walking around with my camera, kind of directionless, kind of aimless, no agenda. But whatever I see that happens to look interesting, I'll take a photo of it and line it up and compose it in a way that I think is nice. And that really helps me to, I think, connect with my environment more and see things in a way that I wouldn't otherwise. If you're driving through the downtown, you're not going to notice all these things. If you're walking through it, you're going to notice more. And if you're walking with a camera, you're going to notice even more. So it's a cool way to just kind of connect with your world. And so it's in that respect, a big mental health piece, I think, for me, photography. I do it a little bit differently than I think a lot of other people do it, where they get in people's faces and take candid photos of people. I'm not into that, but I do like studying people. I like people watching, not in a creepy way, but just I'm really interested in how confident people are when they're kind of walking down the street and they're tending to their business, or they got their headphones on, or they're going to a meeting or something like that. And there's this like storyline behind everybody. And that sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but it's really interesting. And I think if you capture a whole bunch of people doing that at once and you take a photograph of that, it's something you can just stare at for a long time. And I really like that. It makes me feel better about being in these really populous places, just that sense of control, I guess. But sometimes people say, yes, I would get rid of it. And there are definitely times in my life where I would have said that when I was a teenager and I just didn't want to deal with it. But seeing how just interwoven it is to everything that I do, how I think, how I operate, like, yeah, there's a downside. Yeah, I don't like being depressed. I don't, and to put an asterisk on that, Tourette is not depression, but it comes with it. All these things that come with TS are things that I don't love, but at the same time, there are takeaways from it, things I can learn from it, ways I can apply it to my life. And it also gives me a sense of empathy that this is something I do talk about a lot on the podcast, is having the sense of empathy that I'm not sure I would have if I didn't have TS. So it's to be in a position where you could be misunderstood or taken out of context, or someone could judge you unfairly. And it really makes you, I think, in the mind frame, sensitive to other people, because you don't want to perpetrate that on other people. You don't want to get them wrong. You want to hear them out, give them room to breathe, not just get into some immediate political fight. Like you want to talk to people and have conversations to understand where they're coming from if it's an issue. And maybe I would be like that if I didn't have Tourette, but I know that having Tourette has kind of gotten me there to where I do have that sense of empathy. So that's something I don't want to get rid of. The creative angles of it, and And plus, I think just the reward of having something that's a little bit different, I like that too, where I think maybe I didn't like it before. I've come to totally self-accept, and it's been a long time coming.
For show and tell, what do you want to show us and tell us about?
So I remember, again, tying right back into photography, I remember my grandfather was a photographer, but I didn't appreciate it at the time, didn't really care about it. It was just people take photos, that's all it was to me. But I remember his darkroom, I remember his enlarger, I remember his cameras, his photo books and everything. And so just recently, my dad handed me this huge archive of like 10,000 Kodachrome and Ektachrome slides, Kodak film slides. And so I've been scanning them, and his images are great. Like, he does a lot of stuff that's I guess eerily similar to what I do in terms of subject matter. One of my favorite photographers is William Eggleston, and he just took a lot of kind of everyday, just like a car and the light is hitting it a certain way and someone's walking in the background, things like that. He did a lot of that, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm drawn to. So I've been scanning his slides. So show and tell, I just grabbed a stack of these Kodachrome slides right here. Here's an unspent Kodachrome 20 exposures, ISO 64. The sad thing is, and I would try to shoot this, but you can't develop Kodachrome anymore because the chemical process Kodak doesn't support anymore. You can develop Ektachrome and Kodacolor and all these different kinds, but not Kodachrome specifically. So I'm hoping it comes back one day so I can shoot this roll of film that used to belong to my grandfather. So it's been neat kind of scanning these things in and just kind of seeing where his mind was when he put the camera up to his face. Photographers like Steve McCurry, the guy who took the National Geographic girl with the sea green eyes, like, he shot a lot of Kodachrome. It's just very beautiful and vibrant on the colors. And so it's neat to see a really vibrant, colorful, I guess, presentation of this time period where he took these photos, be the 60s, 70s, early 80s. And so it's been really rewarding to see. And I'm going to put them into a book at some point and get them printed out.
Ben, I really want to thank you for coming. This has been a really interesting and fun interview.
Yeah, no, this is a good time. As we're speaking, this has been the lunch hour, and this has been the best lunch hour I've had in a while, because this is typically the work day. I've been working from home. You just plug yourself in, and you don't stop working like into the night. So this is a fun way to break it up. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. I hope you can get some more breaks, and I hope you can get some rest too. You obviously seem to need it. You're quite a busy fellow.
Working on it, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.